Good evening. My name is Matthias Hornschuh. I'm a composer as well. GEMA board member, as Mathis told you, and I'm the spokesperson for Initiative Urheberrecht, which is the German umbrella for the German authors' rights associations. Just a few weeks ago, I released my book. Mathis was talking about it, and it's dealing with the very topics I'll be talking about. Let's start with a question. Do you buy organic milk? Do you pay attention to animal welfare when purchasing eggs? Anyone wearing fair trade textiles? Great, I do, same here. I can see a whole lot of arguments in favor of such an approach. They are connected to justice, to ecological sustainability and regenerative economic activity, and to a personal or maybe collective attitude. But have you ever thought about music from free-range composers kept in species-appropriate conditions? Today's entertainment, like films, series, games, social media content and music, comes from the Wi-Fi. It's just there. All the music ever written, performed and recorded for, let's say, $14 a month. And this is where the trouble starts. People don't know anything about the working conditions in arts and in culture. And why would they? They don't know any details about cows, chicken, and farmers or textile workers in Bangladesh as well. But culture, or to be more precise, cultural work is an ecosystem like any other. It's just not conceived like that. And just like in any other ecosystem, there is one simple truth for the artistic and creative ecosystem: everything is connected. If you kill the bees, there won't be the plants to feed the cattle for our burgers. If you overheat the oceans, you kill the fish, which won't feed us anymore. So what if we don't take care of the creative workers, the knowledge workers, the composers and performers, novelists and journalists, artists and actors? They feed us musically, visually, emotionally, intellectually, but they are starving. Back in May, I was invited to talk about fairness in music. But what does fairness even mean? Who does the term address? Whose fairness do we take into account? Is fairness something we measure, something more or less objective? Or is it just essentially a subjective ethical judgment? Is fairness a question of justice, and how does the law relate to it? Music publishers often say something like, when the music authors are doing well, we are doing well. Well, that sounds fair, as it underlines the mutual dependency of all stakeholders. Music is an ecosystem, music economy is an ecosystem. But what about the opposite statement? Could we agree on the following sentence: when the labels, music publishers, streaming services are doing well, artists are doing well? The simple answer is no, we can't. Because that's simply not how it is. There's so much evidence, there are so many stories and studies, but still we are told to stop spreading anecdotes. You know what? When 75% of, this is 3 or 4 authors and performers emphatically express that they are massively dissatisfied with remuneration, with the lack of transparency, and with a profound lack of respect, as proven for music authors, for the music streaming in the German market, then that is a fact. Let's get that straight. 3 or 4 creatives feel the situation is unfair, so it arguably is unfair. As simple as that. Now, there's more to music than music streaming, and there are more facts than this one, but crucial finding. So let's get back to the ecosystem and let's have a closer look at its core structures. The music ecosystem can be described by a few key parameters. We will have a look at key players, key markets, professional roles, and income streams. Due to the tight schedule, most of the numbers I provide relate to the German market and the German economy, and I will focus strictly on the perspective of those who make the music. Furthermore, I'll focus on the market for recorded music, which is a license-only market. Please keep in mind that the recording of the music contains the musical work as well as its performance. Okay, the key players. Someone needs to write the music, that's the music authors. Those who sing, play, and dance the music are the music performers, often called artists. Someone else publishes and markets it, that would be the publishers and labels. The digital streaming service providers, let's call them DSPs, distribute the recordings to the public. To do that, they need licenses from the respective rights holders, so we need to talk about music rights. The musical works, that's compositions and lyrics, are protected by copyright. The Anglo-American copyright isn't exactly the same as the European author's right, but they're compatible. Performances and recordings are protected by so-called neighboring or performance rights. The exclusive right to market a recording is called master right. For a deeper understanding of music creators' complaints and understanding of professional roles is crucial, this will lead us to their role-specific income streams. There's an English term we're lacking in German, and that's originator. Originators are those to whom a legal entitlement arises through the act of creation. There are 3 main categories of professional roles, each associated with the status quo of originators. First, music authors of compositions and lyrics. Second, performing artists, the musicians, they must be differentiated according to their contractual status. That is, featured artists, the stars, versus session musicians who are simply hired. And third, those who finance the recording and hold the master rights. Master rights can be sold, not told, sold. So, where does the money come from? Well, usually it comes either from direct contractual partners or from collective management organizations, CMOs like Suiza, GEMA, SACEM or PRS. Now, the session musicians, the hired guns, know quite a few constellations with no direct contracts attached and no CMO involved. We'll get back to that later. But wait, who pays for the actual work composers and lyricists do? The answer is no one. Attention, this applies to Europe, where the Anglo-American work made for hire principle is unknown. Music authors' work is unpaid. This even includes commissioned composers like me in the film sector. We work entirely at our own risk. The fee is for granting the rights. It does not constitute payment for labor. Copyright is not about work, it's about works. So the only money we can earn as authors comes from licenses and royalties. In fact, more than 60% of the average income of composers in the German market stems from GEMA, the collecting society responsible for us music authors. If our work is not paid for, and we are therefore dependent on license payments, this means that every license or usage payment that is not granted constitutes a cut in our livelihood. In practice, a single person often has several roles. There are lots of performing writers and many writing artists. However, being a performer is a very different profession from being a songwriter or classical composer. So who pays for the performance? For now, it should be enough to say featured artists. Those who have a contractual relation to a label will be paid by their contractual partners, who get their share for the recordings from the DSPs. The session musicians hired by them are paid per session or per event. They don't have any legal or contractual relation to the DSPs, and their CMO, the German GVL, does not administer online rights at all. So, as a result, the session musicians might get nothing from streaming, because usually session fees are handled as buyouts. This is one-off payments. And this is despite the fact that German law clearly stipulates that musicians must receive appropriate remuneration for any use of their performances and recordings. However, this claim simply cannot be enforced in practice, and anyone who tried might probably never get a job again. I'm going to give you a more general oversight of the status quo. For session musicians, there is the fear of blackmailing, a cash shortage that severely restricts the ability to take legal action, and the awareness of having rights but not being able to enforce them under any circumstances. The result, a humiliating experience of powerlessness. Music authors have to realize that their slice of the very cake that could not have been baked without their contribution is not enough to survive. After deducting 5% publishing, round about 10% remains for sometimes up to 14 authors collaborating on one song. They have to digest the fact that the platforms impose unworthy rules on them against which they cannot defend themselves because they as well have no direct contractual relationship with the streamers. Last but not least, the featured artists. Being in that category might sound like you've made it, like you belong to the elite. It's not necessarily so. Featured artists are those musicians whose name or person is connected to the project, or who are members of the signed band. They might be major artists with international success, national indie talent, or no-budget DIY acts. They all have structural problems. The biggest problem is shown in a current study commissioned by the German government, a sharp polarization of remuneration that the analyst Mark Mulligan described more than 10 years ago as superstar economy. 0.1% of acts account for 75% of overall revenue, while 68% of all acts generate less than €1 in revenue per year. Just some of the other problems. There are an increasing number of services that artists have to pay for on the platforms. There's lots of criminal activities unfolding on the platforms like click fraud. Many contracts are simply designed to be as unfair as possible, and due to the asymmetry of the market, a lot is possible. Both the artists and the authors cannot comprehend how the recommendation algorithms work on which they depend for their existence. Now let's take a step back and look at the overall situation. The risk tends to lie on our shoulders while the profit remains with the companies. In other words, we are not adequately rewarded for the added value created by our products. If you need to reach and engage with an audience, you need a suitable channel. We are dependent on very few American and Asian service providers for streaming and social media. You could even call it a locked-in situation, and we lack alternatives. So, me and my colleagues have been worried for some time. It's no wonder that more and more people have been leaving the industry since the coronavirus pandemic. Enter generative AI, an accelerant for the fire already consuming the creative minds. Earlier this year, the French streamer Deezer reported 20,000 AI-generated tracks per day being uploaded to their platform every single day. By September 25, this number had already risen to 30,000, an increase of 50% in 6 months. And again, it's not just about music. In fall 24, 57% of the total text content on the web was already generated text. Forecasts from late last year predicted that later this year, 90% of all content on the web would be synthetic. That means AI generated. There's a term for that, it's called enshittification. Latest figures show the extent to which the portion of generated texts among newly published English language articles has been increasing since November 22. It rose from 5% to 53.5%, and according to forecasts might reach 90% in the coming year. By the way, the analysis suggests that a significant proportion of these texts originate from mainstream media outlets. That's what you might call shooting yourself in the foot. It seems short-sighted because the sheer amount of generated context makes human-made music, art, literature, journalism undiscoverable. Our works become practically invisible in the sea of AI slop. At the meantime, AI providers are preparing to substitute us in our own market with their slop at zero marginal cost. This marks the entry to the exit from the Western incentive-based ecosystem for creative work or at a professional level. In combination with a dysfunctional music streaming economy, this constitutes a threat to cultural diversity on the European music market and the overall market for cultural goods. This is exactly what the European Parliament concluded in its music streaming report in January 24. They told the European Commission to solve our structural market problems that cannot be solved by market means. The parliamentarians concluded the European idea stands and falls with diversity as, according to its founding treaty, the EU is based on unity in diversity. Now you might have heard the description of generative AI as a fire accelerant before. I have already listed some of the implications of our use of so-called AI, and maybe I have already convinced you of the validity of the metaphor, but again, there's more to it, much more. The big Gen AI models have been trained on our content, without our consent, without giving us credit, and you may assume it without compensation. Just in case you used OpenAI's ChatGPT or Meta's Llama, be aware they're based on theft. And while the use of AI in text authorities or in logistics might seem plausible, thinking can't be automated and creativity can't be scaled. Generative AI tends to plagiarize human creative goods. There's no business model attached to AI output, since copyright is strictly anthropocentric. And the very software that you use to ease your stress level is a pattern recognition system, a perfect surveillance instrument for whoever gets hold on it. Now, speaking of fairness, we need to distinguish between different directions of fairness and their addressees. Let's stay with the creative originators for a moment and later turn to society as a further addressee. I often hear that there's no point in resisting progress. That's what the drivers of horse-drawn carriages tried to do when the motor vehicle came along, didn't help. But, well, no, that's bullshit. The story they tell us is based on the idea of collapsing demand. They tell us we or our art won't be needed anymore, but in fact the opposite is true. We are experiencing 100% demand. Every work, every performance is currently in demand just because they are available online. It will stay like that for years. And there's a simple reason for that. AI models trained on synthetic data, that means generated data, enter a state known as model collapse. They get dumped. You're familiar with the consequences of incest? Same thing. AI needs art, but art does not need AI. The AI providers depend on us. We produce the fuel for their machines. But still, they refuse to give us our share of the value added or the value created. At the same time, the entire value added is redirected to other economies. They even dispute the value of our goods, the very goods without which they cannot train their models. Now, has there ever been a situation in history in which the producers of an absolutely indispensable ingredient of a supposed future technology did not participate in its value creation? Well, the answer is yes. Just two words: colonialism, slavery. Welcome to digital feudalism, a world in which tech giants and government power merge and sweep away the separation of powers. What price will we pay for it? Is this what we want as societies? I don't think so. I believe in human dignity, in democracy, and in the rule of law. But AI has a totalitarian potential through surveillance and so-called cognitive offloading. That means letting an AI think or create for you. The effects on critical thinking are subject to worldwide research, and the results so far are alarming. Last month, a little study has been released that shows the effect of using an AI assistant for an essay writing task on our cognition. By the parameters of quoting ability, text ownership, critical thinking, and so-called cognitive depth, deferring mental effort at the cost of long-term cognitive depth. And this is the result, it's brain fog. The widespread and unreflected use of the technology bears very specific and inherent risks. Decades of an essentially unregulated platform economy have eroded the foundations of cultural work and journalism. Cultural, artistic, and knowledge-based labor is not recognized as real work. And now Gen AI provides us with low-threshold truth distortion and truth creation machines. They let us fabricate any kind of alternative reality and history that interested parties could wish for. Education culture, and the media are threatened by dehumanization through the uniformization of thought. In an AI age, there will be still products that feel and smell like art, but we might lose everything we could win by making art. Actually, making art in general is not about the product, but the process. By sacrificing the incentivization of knowledge work, culture and media included, we are endangering the economy of our knowledge society. Not to mention culture and identity itself. Remember, thinking cannot be automated, creativity cannot be scaled. We must take care that the gap between technological progress and political control does not become unmanageably large. Tech won't save us, the market won't save us, so it's up to politics. I know, bold, maybe dystopic statements. Don't get me wrong, this is not about prohibitions. I'm not calling for a driving ban, I want traffic regulations. Make no mistake, I'm not even anti-AI, I am anti-swarm stupidity. Our problems arise from a mixture of thoughtlessness, ignorance and egoism, combined with a refusal to accept complexity and a profound lack of tolerance for ambiguity. Anyone who is a master of reflection and critical thinking will certainly be able to remain in control when dealing with AI technologies. But how many people are able to do so? I don't know. However, at the end of the day, there's something we can do. And the first point is quite obvious. Let's start by being educated and responsible consumers. We can make a difference. Check for free-range composers in species-appropriate soil conditions. Choose which DSP to use. Don't use Spotify. Why do you use Spotify? Why do you have Google accounts? Why do you use WhatsApp? You shouldn't. Dropbox. Choose which aspects of your life and profession to automate it all. Second, we are not helpless. Let's fight back. These are 3 dimensions. We can talk about licensing, which is the only way right now to make sure we can opt out, we can say no. Litigation, going to courts, which is what GEMA is doing against OpenAI, and they're quite good at it. And regulation. Let's make and enforce rules that balance economic power and societal matters. To sum it up, if 3 or 4 of all music creators cannot understand why which part of which income goes to whom, can that be fair? And should the law allow it? Without an enforceable right to remuneration, we stumble back into feudalism. We cannot grant the freedom of the arts, and we put the incentivization of knowledge work at risk. Copyright is the market regulation law for art, culture, and all knowledge work. Copyright is meant to incentivize innovation. Europe is dependent on innovation. However, copyright law does not reach many of its beneficiaries in practice. This cannot be compensated for by market forces, so policymakers must react. Not only to make it fair, but to make it sustainable. Cultural and knowledge work is an ecosystem. We should consider whether we are still guided by the right questions and intentions. What do we have to do? What are we ready to give up for digital sovereignty? My proposal: we need a fundamental paradigm shift in favor of creative innovation. This is the urgent consequence of the rapid spread of AI, or rather, our way of dealing with it. We must protect and strengthen human intelligence and creativity. There's an unmistakable and momentous trend towards the scaling of wealth. While we're facing a dramatic and growing inequality in the world, including the West, this is a threat to states, to societies, and ultimately to humanity. This translates to the cultural ecosystem. Currently, we prioritize the most potent and the ones with the widest reach. Shouldn't we turn our efforts towards the new and significant? we need to consider how we can safeguard high-level professionalism in the cultural and knowledge professions. The current system is failing. It seems that we need a new one that is not only fair but sustainable, while stealing and exploitation do not build sustainable knowledge economies. It is the culture bees, the creative workers, that pollinate the flowers of society, knowledge, and the economy. Europe has to decide, submission or sovereignty. What do we have to change to stay who we are? Who are we anyway? Could it be that we, or our identity, depend more on our minds than on US technology? Thank you for your time and attention, and a big thank you to Christian Schlierkamp, who created the Culture Bees for the presentation. See you later at the bar.
Moment. Wie heißt das Stück?
Bitte?
Wie heißt das Stück?
Kitov. Es
Kitov.
war gut.
It was good.
Reich, genau. It was good, ja.
And the composers?
James Vaughan. Alex Vaughan, Entschuldigung.
Alex Vaughan.
Alex Vaughan und soweit ich
English?
Sorry. And as far as I know, he's also involved in AI music at the moment and researching. So yeah, maybe also connected to what we discussed tonight.
Thanks. So when I was inviting them and thinking about which pieces to play in different parts of this evening, I heard this music and I thought this is like the perfect segue because this sound which comes from the deep Maschinenraum. What's that in English? The machine room before or when music comes into being. So, anyone who ever did a presentation in Prezi will know how I feel now. So, Corpus. Corpus is a proposal for nothing less than a complete ecosystem. Connecting creators of music with users of music in the form of generative AI models, or in fact also other kinds of AI models, and building a structure which finally closes the complete circle of value flow. Because so far, the models are monetized on the very end, on the right. Money flows maybe until here, and that's it. So, that's Prezi. It all starts with music. And Corpus is a platform for uploading music, not the first idea, but the general idea, maybe I should go one back. So the basic motivation, sometimes I forget to mention the very obvious one. Basic motivation is that this is an ecosystem which incentivizes the music community on the left to contribute music to a shared music library, which then can be used by those people on the right. And contributing happens on an individual level. It's aimed for independent musicians, composers, game and film composers, singer-songwriters, bands, ensembles, but also for catalog owners, larger labels, production and stock music libraries, archives. I'm especially interested in working with ethnological institutions. Shall I put this a bit closer here, Boris? Does that help? Okay. And sharing music with us is only the first step. To make it meaningful in context of AI training is with metadata. So what is metadata, or differently termed annotations? I often explain it with image generators. So there's lots of millions and billions of images, and a lot of and one image might be a photo of a cat. the AI system, the AI model doesn't know what to do with a cat. It needs a second data point, which is a text file. And in this text file, there's a sentence, on this photo is a cat. And then the AI model can learn from this connection of photo with a cat and a description of that on this photo is a cat. And the more detailed this description gets, with the sky is blue and there's a tree and the cat is gray and so on, the more useful it becomes for AI training. So our system takes great care of that because it's not only about collecting music, but it's also aiming to make these systems better. Something I deeply miss in using these current systems is control. It's like a slot machine. You generate something and you're surprised and it's cool, but then if you want to refine it and you want to go on with that, it's not doing what you want to do. And that's something which we hopefully can make better with better metadata, with better descriptions. And so these are the standard descriptions you know from current systems. So you know something about tempo, you know something about key, the dreaded genres. I actually don't know any musician who's happy thinking about genres, because basically we all think we do something unique, and we don't. It's a bureaucratic step to put that into genres, but somehow the music world lives of that. And same is also for moods, so keywords, tags. And one step already outside of going from these broad bureaucratic classifications is actually describing the music, which can be brief, like this one, or I have to check the volume. It can be very detailed. What you hear is the song which forms the basis for this description, which is completely automatically generated in our system. I want to encourage you to read a little. I hope you can. And this is another example where it's a bit easier to talk over. It's This is a point where it's a good moment to talk actually about how we tackle this project from a musical and theoretical problem, because most of the time it's about asking good questions, and that will lead you to interesting answers. And this problem of generating descriptions of music is one of the most unsolved problems, and it's quite hard because these models don't listen. We quickly realized if we automate that process, because in the end it's about automation, we need to know what we actually want to automate. And that's something which is not very thoroughly researched. And that was the moment where I realized, okay, this is actually not an AI problem or an engineering problem, this is a musicology problem. So what is actually an objective, kind of an objective description of music? And that's where Michael Emanuel Bauer, who's here, came into the team and provided a lot of research and came up with this structure of a chapter which is trying to answer the question, what is the music? What does the music to you? How could it be used in a programmatic sense? And what could be possible functions for this music in the context of a film use? And what I personally very much love about this is that suddenly we don't deal with these genres anymore, but we have something like a description space. And this can lead to a lot of interesting functions inside the whole system, how to discover music, how to find music, how to deal with music. This opens a door into very different areas. And then it's about money. And we, of course, register the work you contribute to the system, but we also evaluate it on the question, how useful is it actually for AI training? And what is the value it brings in the moment of contribution to the system, to the music library? So when we talk of originality and of quality, it's always the moment of contribution relative what's already in the library. There are three objectives if you want to create a data set for AI training, and maybe that goes for many other applications as well. You want, first of all, quantity. You need massive amounts of music. You need quality, and you need diversity. So there's one reason why Zuno and the likes work so well, because there's tons of self-similar pop music out there which the AI can learn from. And the more we can also get away from this mainstream Western pop music and create data sets which span the musical culture of the whole world, the more expressive these models would become. Hopefully not for me, not only for me. So, that's a very important thing. It's always about opt-in. The current field is trying to prevent scraping. The system, the music we have in this system is by definition opt-in with consent and agreement. And before we get to this right side, let me say that especially what we saw with these extended descriptions, we do envision already quite interesting systems for exploration, discovery, research, inspiration, because there's already so much music in the world, isn't it? But it's so hard to find it. And it's too early now to speak about it, but I guess early next year we will show some of our ideas. But our system is for AI training, and we want to unlock use cases for AI training which are unlocked for European institutions and corporations, because we have still a regulation, EU AI Act, and with our system you get data sets where the list of training data is just a push of a button. So the compatibility with the EU AI Act is sorry, is not an afterthought or doesn't include so much work as it does right now, if it's even possible. And one thing which is new, so as you learned already from Matthias, music is a very complex legal field. We have copyright, we have performing rights, we have master rights, and so on. But what becomes really urgent also in the field of AI is personality rights. So you will see also later, we want to be sure that if there are singers in the music, that the singers gave consent. So finally we are here. The reason why I started this whole project, the idea is actually born in 21, and I was with Luciano, who was also in the room, and a few others. Patrick, hello Patrick. We were experimenting with AI in music, and I got quite frustrated because the system wouldn't deliver interesting stuff. And one of the many reasons was that there was simply not interesting training data, and without training data, AI systems are useless. The more interesting the training data, the more interesting the AI models. And at the same time, I started working for automotive industries and other industries in the field of UX sound design, human-machine interfaces. Before, I also had quite some experiences with games and interactive art. And I'm totally attracted to the idea that we could create music experiences which not just move you, but that moves with you. So everything adaptive, sound which is interactive. It exists. We know that it's very efficient and it's very emotional in AAA games. Like if you spend a lot of production budget into creating assets for adaptive music systems, it works beautifully, and it's a completely different way of interacting with music. And as you might have guessed with what I just said, it's a very elaborate process, and it's a costly process. It's hardly scalable. And that's something where I see the really big potential for AI systems in music. Interactive soundscapes. So entering music as a space and not listening to music as a time-based form, which is of course always is. But the music I'm imagining doesn't have a beginning and an end and some development in between, but is a space which starts with the moment you enter it. It develops along the path you take exploring it, and it ends when you leave it. And that's fundamentally a very artistic vision. It's an idealistic vision. But at the same time, it has actually quite large commercial opportunities, which is what would fuel this ecosystem. So I said I have some experience in automotive. There's this idea, this wish that that you can connect to the car, that you can connect emotionally, that the car reacts empathically, that it knows about you, that it knows about context, weather, where you are, how you're driving, what's happening, and that it would communicate with you in a buzzword they're using is context authentic way. So you perceive it as right. That's actually one of the main problems why it's very hard to sell these systems, because you don't notice them well. So the demos you have to do to show them is actually counterintuitive and opposite of what you're actually aiming for. And we're talking about non-speech audio, so not systems which talk to you, but that make sound. There's a large opportunity in medical tech, in creating responsive devices, devices which listen, devices which not only create annoying alarm sounds which stress you, but which are able to comfort you and give you some feeling of Geborgenheit, comfort, yeah, that's the word I just used. And there's actually a very unique, very special use case which is kind of tough to tell, but there's actually a large problem with personal capacity, not personal like employee capacity in dementia departments. And one thing which is, I don't know if you had connections with the dementia patients, I only very sparsely, but it's quite hard because they tell the same stories over and over and over. And already now, listening systems actually help a lot, and both, not only for reducing like workload, but also because they are always friendly, they are always responsive, it helps actually those patients. And they sing. These people sing. They sing their children songs. They haven't forgotten that. And having systems, musical systems, which are able to respond to those singing and make music with you is something which I think could bring a lot of value. Responsive ambiences is also something which can be used artistically as well as hardcore commercially. Think of retail stores which react in their sound environment to how many people are inside, what's the mood inside, and that could very well replace the playlist way, which is the current practice today and is annoying me like hell. And then this is a really large opportunity for the arts, is unlocking archives. And I would like to tell you the story of a senior AI music developer, researcher, and we were talking about how amazing it can be to talk, now I say talk, but to chat, to interact with an LLM, like ChatGPT or whatever, about a specific subject. And he told the story that in his young years he was studying special relativity theory, and he did study it, he passed his exams, but it was just on the surface, he never really went inside, and last winter, after 30 years or so, he decided, okay, he give it another shot by using such a chat AI system. And he said that was like 2 or 3 days like a frenzy. He couldn't stop conversation with these AI systems about special relativity theory, and he came out of this frenzy enlightened, like with a deep feeling of having understood this subject, like embodiment of this theory. And that's something I think we can also create for music. Libraries don't need to have books and CDs in the shelves about music. You can interact with the music. You can experiment how music changes when you change instrumentation. You can experiment and explore why a piece of music is composed as it is, and you can discover music which you would have not thought you might be liking. Back to the ecosystem. It is about money. We all want to earn money. And I speak about these industries because they are large. They are much larger than what the music industry knows currently. If we open markets here, it's larger markets than what we lose currently through AI. That's my theory. And so we can build models which create revenue, and this revenue comes back into our system. And how is this revenue now flowing back to the actual contributors? So we have costs, and we are a tech company. That's a difference than to a publisher or label or a rights broker. We are a tech company, and that works a bit different. So we have to first deduct the costs of that. And we also will be needing reinvestments, and we also will need investments from outside. And what's remaining, and I think that can be quite a lot, that's then shared to the contributors who shared. So in the dashboard later you will see what of your music landed in this model. And you have an amount of points for your tracks of music, and all tracks of music combined generate a total amount of points, and your share of points will give you the share of that profit sharing. And the key to the share is this, and this is the real novelty in the system. That's the new paradigm, that we evaluate the incoming, the contributed music in terms of the quality it brings and the novelty, originality it brings. At the moment of contribution, that closes the whole game theoretical loop. It incentivizes creations which are made not for a mass market, but made for you. So it actually, suddenly we have an incentive system here which gives you bonus points for things you love doing, and not for things you think you have to do to appeal a mass market. And in the end, this share of the profit is also the idea that everybody who contributed value to the whole system also becomes some sort of shareholder in terms of like corporate share, but also governance share. And this is something we are currently researching and investigate a lot. It's not easy to solve. It sounds easier as it is to execute, and it creates friction, especially if you're talking about outside investors. But yeah, this whole idea of Corpus is about asking questions and trying to answer them. And so far, I think we are not doing too bad. And as we are not doing too bad, we now will hear and see Jacob showing our current state of the contribution platform. It's our idea was that we could show it today and open it and invite you to contribute music. Well, anybody who was ever involved in software development knows that everything takes 3 times as long and then again 3 times as long. And we will soon be opening the platform for early testers, and we will later have a discussion here, and I really hope that this is a system which is not built on the island of us, our little island. We talk a lot with other institutions, we talk a lot with partners in the industry. This is nothing which can be developed on this little island. This is like the only chance to succeed with such a project is connect and collaborate with many, 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 many people in this industry. And it would be great if you join us. In the moment, unfortunately, we can only hope you will be expressing interest to receive information from us. There is a wait list already for onboarding, as testing for the contribution platform. And I think from now on it will go a bit quicker. We are just 1 year old, not even 10 months. So this is all pretty good, I think. So, let's see. Jacob.
Very good. Yeah. Okay. Very good. All right. Thank you. Yeah. So my name is Jakob, and I'm gonna just show you a little bit of a walkthrough of our platform and how it actually would look to upload the music to the platform and receive points and the kind of checks we have for this. So what we see here is the Corpus platform, and I'm just going to jump straight into it, and let's upload a file. Here we already see the point system that was mentioned earlier, where we try to incentivize having uncompressed formats. So here you will get more points for WAV files and less points for MP3s. Let's open here, and we're gonna pick a piece of music, and first we're met with a review where we can just check that this is the song we wanted to upload, and then we can also look at something called contribution agreements. Here I pick 100% ownership, that this is my composition. And let's confirm the upload, and immediately our system starts to do its integrity checks and creating metadata, something that I will get more into specifically, but basically while it's loading, we can say that it's checking if it actually is music, if there's vocals in it, and if there's any duplicates of it already in the system, and if there's any copyright compliance issues. The metadata down here is the basic metadata and also the more advanced descriptions and keywords that we saw earlier. Exactly. So this brings us to a window where we can see the metadata that has been created, and I'm just going to play the song a little bit, and we can look at if we think that the system is on point. Okay, so basically what we see here, just to walk you really quickly through it, on the top here we see the basic metadata information that we're used to, such as file name, sample rate, duration, a little more advanced, whereas if there's vocals or not, and BPMs and so on. Underneath, it has tagged which instruments are involved, and right now My username is Maya Rodriguez, by the way. My real name is Jakob. But here I'm set as the performer because I'm the 100% right owner of this. But this is also something that I can edit. We have the genres, soundtrack, orchestral, cinematic, and moods. And down here we then see our description and also an extended description of our track. So this is a kind of metadata that's just automatically created. And what's also important is that we can actually verify it here, which also serves to improve the data quality. At the end here, I just want to point to this originality analysis, or you can also call it a novelty analysis, where we can see how novel this is in our library. And it's actually quite rare that this kind of music is in our library, so this will also be something that we will give more points and a bigger share if you contribute with more of this kind of music that's novel in our system. Yeah, and just down here on the track list, we can see 100% ownership, and we can see 50 points have been given. We also can see that all our integrity checks have been approved, which means that the quality is good, there's no vocals, and there is no copyright compliance issues with this track. Okay, let's try and upload another track where we can try and flag some things. Here we have a track, vocals, and I'm just going to claim that this is 100% mine, and we'll upload it. And again, we get all our integrity checks, making sure that whatever is uploaded to the corpus is actually fair use, it's fair rights, it's not AI-generated music or copyright compliance issues with like cover songs or something like this. So now I uploaded the song, I said this is mine, I have 100% rights, but I'm getting a notification up here that says that there is an issue. And the issue is that there is missing a vocal attribution. So if we listen to the song, I'll click a little into it. So, as you can hear, there's a vocal there, and our system detected this and is saying, hey, in your agreement with us, you're saying you're 100% right, but you haven't said that there's any vocalist on there. So it's asking me to remove the track and re-upload it with a correct agreement that actually says who is singing on there. And we're doing that in the agreement window here. Here I can create new agreements where I can state my role. Maybe I was the composer of the song. I can also say how many shares I am getting, so maybe I'm getting 60%. And in the next, and I will just name it, and in the next one, I would then be able to add other contributors and say their role. I'm not going to do the whole thing right now for making all these agreements, but I'm going to use an agreement that already exists here, and there is already a vocalist added to this agreement. So now I can upload the song again, and this time I will choose an agreement that has actually a vocalist attributed to it. And this will be uploaded, and all the integrity checks will go through. And once this is done, a message will be sent directly to the vocalist. We have the email from the contribution, the contribution agreement. And then they have a chance to say, yes, I'm on this track, and yes, you can use my vocals for this purpose of training AI models. So now we can see over here in our Action Hub, there are no notifications. It's totally fine. Everything is cleared. We have our general metadata analysis. And if we look down here at our files, we can see that there's an agreement with a producer and a vocalist. And my 50 points are pending because I'm waiting to hear from the vocalist that she will agree to that we upload this track on the platform. Once that's done, everything will be cleared for AI training. Exactly. And then now that we have vocals, I can also point to that we actually also get a transcription of the lyrics. And this is of course good metadata for training, but actually it also is used for avoiding copyright issues, because you can check if this is a lyric of another band and actually it's not yours to share with the corpus. Good. So let's actually look a little bit more at how we make sure that there are no copyright issues. So let's try and upload a cover song. Here we got a cover song of Let It Be, and I'm just going to claim that that is our song here in this agreement. The system is doing its checks and its analysis. All right, let's just hear a little bit of the song here.
When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary.
Yeah, so if there actually was a human sitting and checking every single song, they would be pretty fast to say, okay, this is a cover song, this is not your rights, it's not an original song. Our system has automatically also detected that this is a cover song, and it is prompting us here that we need to take action. So it's showing us here that it's Let It Be, and it's giving us a YouTube link, so we can, as the artist who uploaded it, we get confronted with like, hey, this song sounds exactly like this other song. And the two options we have is to say, this is actually my original work, and that will start a process with us where a content manager will be contacted, and we can work out this dispute, and the song will be pending until then. Or we can say, okay, it was Let It Be, I'm sorry, just cancel the upload. Now I know I cannot game the system, and I cannot, train the AI on that and make money from it. So, good. Yes, exactly. And then another issue that's actually more common than one would think is to upload non-music. So let's try and upload some simple ambience from a park and see if our system actually would allow this. So very fast we go through the integrity checks. It will still do actually a description of the file, and it will still give us metadata on the file, even though it's non-music. Good. So again, we get a notification in the Action Hub saying there's a quality issue. So our system found that this track may contain not contain recognizable music, and yeah, we can just listen if we think it's right. Yeah. And here we have the options to, again, cancel the upload and be like, sorry, I thought I could game the system, or keep the track in the library if for some reason you want this track on our platform, but you will get 0 points. It cannot be used for AI training. At least you will not get paid for it. Or you can apply for an exception. And the exception is actually a little bit interesting because, of course, you have like really, really experimental music or noise music that may actually, to the system, resemble non-music, and in that case you can apply for an exception if you, for example, if you're a noise artist, and our content manager will review your request, and this filter can be bypassed. Okay, for now we're just gonna cancel the upload. Exactly, and what's worth noting also is, as a musician uploading here or a composer, you can also add more files. You can add stems, you can add MIDI files or artwork, and this will also give you more points in the system, which in the end will give you a bigger share of the revenue, the net revenue, when the models are being used. So, what else did we have? Yes, and then, of course, what we are talking about all the time, we have this mock-up page for now, because we don't have a model in use currently, but this is how you could imagine that you could see the gains you're getting from being on the platform. You can see what models have your tracks been used to train, how many tracks have been trained, and what is your share of the total income from this. And yeah, that's the basics of our contribution platform as it is today. And next I will then give the word to Max, who will talk about AI, some more about AI. Yeah. Na gut?
Thank you, Jacob.
Gerne.
So Max is our head of AI. And so Max is our head of AI, and he's giving you some nerd talk. Because it's nerdy, and it's fun to be nerdy.
Exactly. Hello, welcome. I'm the head of nerds, apparently. Let's go. I will walk you through the exact same thing we just saw, but on a more technical level, so we can actually get a better understanding of how all of these systems actually work. So the big headline here is that we have a state-of-the-art music information retrieval and understanding pipeline, which I believe right now is very much true. We have seen this picture 100 times today. I'm sure you all love it, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit now. We are here, and further we are here. So we have the music recordings, as we've just seen. We put it through the pipeline, and we get all of these beautiful things, like audio format. We filter for non-music. We have high-level descriptions of the pieces, genres, keywords, moods, musical key, BPM, and also the instruments. And then we have some more advanced stuff that I'm going to talk you through, like how the source separation actually works, vocal detection, lyrics detection, cover detection, and the duplicate and originality assessment. Before that, I want to give you some basic terminology, because I'm not sure how technical the audience is. Like, shout if you're technical. Relatively non-technical. So there are a lot of big words that are flying around in the entire AI space when people talk about like models. We talk about features, we talk about embeddings, we talk about representations. They all mean slightly different things, but in this presentation, they all mean the same thing. So when you hear feature, think embedding, think representations. And these are terms that people and researchers especially like using to just mean something very simple. Like a waveform, we have time, we have the amplitude. A lot of you will know what a waveform looks like. You could even argue it is some kind of like representation, sure. Then you can get a little bit more involved. You can transform that waveform. You get something called a spectrogram, where you have time, but then suddenly you see the frequencies. So here you see something like a chord progression. And the brighter it is, the more energy, the more loud it is in this representation. And then there are way more spectrograms and different kinds of spectrograms, and they all do slightly different things, and they're useful for slightly different things. And at some point in time, like a bit over 10 years ago, I believe, some people had the idea of instead learning how to get to these representations through neural networks, and that's what we're doing right now. So suddenly we have learned representations. So those are representations calculated, determined by deep learning models, and we do that through a lot of data. And to get an intuition of that, I want to look at an image classification problem. So imagine we're trying to classify faces and say, this is this person, this is that person, and we want to do this with a neural network. So we have like tens of thousands of pictures, or even like 1,000 pictures of just faces. And then we have many, many layers in the neural network. This is like a simplification. And the image goes in. The first layer might learn something like super simple, like this is an edge that goes up, this is an edge that goes over there, this is an edge that goes slightly in a different squiggly line. And then a slightly deeper layer might learn something more complicated, something more involved, like this is an eye, this is the part of a nose, this is an ear, whatever. And then deeper layers, and this is all research, like we have found neural networks to work like that. On a deeper layer, you might find something like resemblance to specific faces or whatever it is. And at some point you get a classification. All of these are embeddings or representations, and in audio it works exactly the same way depending on what your task is. So you get like very abstract features, but then also very like complex features, and you can use those to do different things. Okay, so we've seen how the pipeline works. We're going to put some audio through it right now, and I'm going to walk you through all of the individual components. Oh yeah, by the way, all of this takes 6.5 seconds, so it's very fast. We start with the non-music filter, which I think is very interesting, that is developed by Laurie, somewhere in the audience. Hello, Laurie. And like we've seen, it's a form of quality control and submission to the Corpus database. So we detect whether submitted recordings are actually music recordings, as defined by us. We are ultimately the big police here. Or something like environmental sounds, speech, noise, any contributions that we don't necessarily want to have in the corpus. And we also check if they're of high quality. What does that mean? Recordings without excessive noise, with minimal background sounds if possible, and very interestingly, we can detect whether they have been previously compressed to formats. That's why WAV is worth more than MP3. This is not a perfect procedure, but it works relatively well, and we're going to discourage people from renaming or just converting an MP3 file to a WAV and being like, this is great. So this is about production quality, how nice it sounds. And to do that, we use a pre-trained classification model, like this random neural network we saw before, which creates something like this. They call it features here. The model is called VGG-ish, but that doesn't really matter. And these features are exactly these sorts of things. So these numbers, along time again, follow a particular pattern for a particular audio recording. This might be a snare sound. And this is super compressed, so it's way more compact than the entire waveform, so way quicker to work with it, and that's why we do it. And then we take this, or Laurie took this, and trained our own classifier based on these sorts of features to put audio recordings into the music we wanted, and the not music we don't want it category. And in our tests, that has worked beautifully. This is really, really cool. Next up, we have key and BPM. So for key, this is quite simple. We have seen the spectrogram from before. And what we can do here is essentially just assign these little blobs across time to the 12-tone equal temperament notes, as we know them, which means this is currently focused on Western tonal music, but it can be extended to account for other musical systems or microtonality. And then you squash them into this representation on the lower right, where you see from 0 to 12 notes across a scale, across all octaves. And then you can literally just count the notes, and then you can compare that with the profile of the different keys and the different scales, and you get a nice result. And BPM we extract via Beat Tracker, which is an existing deep learning model, which gives us beats and downbeats. And the cool thing here is that it's time variable. So not only does it give you a number, it also gives you how the number develops across time. So if people change tempo while playing, we can also detect that, and then, for example, create a tempo map for only fast parts of the song, if we wanted to do that. There's an error. Okay, next up we have the high-level descriptors, and this is what we've seen with the text. So one call to our locally run on our servers state-of-the-art music understanding model gives us the genres, which apparently people hate, I don't know why, but also keywords and moods, which are all great for categorization, classification, and then also for retrieval and lookup tasks. We have seen the text description, so I'm not going to go in there now. The important difference is we have a simple one, and again, we have a more complex, developed one. And the cool thing here is that we can actually start using those for particular use cases. So maybe you don't just want to make a music creation model, maybe you want to make one specifically for film music, and suddenly you care about what these things add to a scene. We now have a way of getting data and information for that. And you can now imagine that you can expand it to a lot of other applications as well. Next up, we have source separation, which is the idea of taking a mix of audio. So imagine a whole band playing, and then we're going to separate the drums, we're going to separate the bass, we're going to separate the vocals, and some other sounds in their own category. So we get the individual components that make up the final recording. This is nothing new. And we can run this on our servers, we can run it on people's laptops, and it enables crucial features such as the vocal detection and lyrics transcription pipeline that Antonia developed, which essentially detects and analyzes the vocals of a submitted song. And for that, we take this vocal track, and then we literally look at how loud it is. And if it's not really loud, then there's probably no vocals in the song. And that is very fast. And once we know that there are vocals in the song, we use the Whisper model to detect the language of the vocals, and we also transcribe the lyrics with a relatively high accuracy, I see. I think 1 in 8 letters is wrong, which translates to 1 every 20 words or so. I think on average is wrong, and it's usually one of the weird words anyways, so it doesn't really matter. And And then we can use, like Jacob said, these transcribed lyrics to compare it to a data set of existing lyrics and do a copyright risk analysis. Similar to that, we have also cover detection, which we developed in partnership with Arithmetic, where the idea is that they have a database of audio representations using the constant Q transform, yet another representation. It's basically a spectrogram that's compressed, can't be reverted back to the original audio, and has some nice musical properties for this particular task. And the idea is that when a new song comes into our pipeline, we can query their database, and now you can see, like down here, each of these points is one of those little tables. Essentially, it's just a table, and then we only have to compare those. We can pick the 3 or the 5 nearest neighbors, and if a lot of them are actually songs of, actually covers of Let It Be, then it's probably a cover of Let It Be. And in practice, that works really well. Similar to that, we have a duplicate checker as well. So why do we want that? Because we don't want the same song in our database, like the exact same recording twice. And to avoid that, we use the technique that is inspired by Shazam, which I'm sure many of you know, where you can just like detect the song in the wild. And that works by generating a spectrogram, we've seen that before, and then finding peaks across the spectrogram. So we're looking which parts of this are the loudest. And then we draw a line between these. In reality, the line is a bit more involved, so like think hundreds of connections across time instead of 4. But now, instead of having to compare like literally tens of thousands of numbers for each song in our database with the new incoming song, we have like 100 numbers or 150 numbers. So it's much, much, much faster, and that's how like Shazam can like go through 100 million songs in like 2 seconds and tell you, I don't know, whatever kind of music you're listening to in the bar. And finally, we have the originality or novelty estimator, where we create a generic, unopinionated representation of the music, which I'm happy to unpack after because it's a bit too complicated right now, which essentially gives us a distribution of the songs that we already have, which we can visualize as a map, where in dark blue you see a lot of songs that people have contributed or like on a test database as well, cluster around this particular area. And then when a new song comes in, we can easily determine the distance from this like main cluster of sounds and calculate a distance value. And that is literally how we define originality. And we don't just do this on the like total music, we also split it up again using source separation, so we can get originality, novelty measurements on the harmonic parts, so like the more instrumental parts, but also the percussive elements. And this can technically be expanded to a lot of different like qualities or like aspects of the music to like determine novelty in many different ways. And yeah, from all of these together, you get what we saw before already in the pipeline, so in the dashboard. And that's it. So now we come out of the pipeline, we have all of this nice stuff. We spent like 7 seconds to compute all of it. The question is, why do we want all of that data? And now we're going to the other side, which Mathis has already like teased a little bit. So this pipeline gives us high quality, highly structured kinds of data that can be adapted to all sorts of use cases. And it's super valuable because we can apply it to existing and new data sets. So it's like a treasure, it becomes a treasure trove for training and improving machine learning models for all sorts of things. Like I'm a big fan of like also non-generative music, by the way. So we have music understanding, we have beat tracking, we have source separation. We have many more applications which there isn't really space for. So music generation is the big one that everybody's talking about. So here's a case study in music generation with public domain data, essentially to demonstrate what you can do with data that is in the public domain using our pipeline to create a music generation model. That's basically what I did for the past few months. So I applied this pipeline to variants of the free music archive dataset and then used this metadata to train several like slightly different music generation models. And with 1,000 hours or about 10,000 relatively short songs of public domain training data, and these descriptions for each of these tracks, gotta play a few seconds, we get music that sounds, I would say, also in terms of like production quality, not terrible. It's not great, it's not terrible. Let's have a listen. And I also want you to like read the like descriptions of the music, which contains the text descriptions, but also other descriptions from the metadata pipeline, and like think about whether it actually does what it says. This one maybe not so much. And finally. All right, so I think it sounds okay, it doesn't sound super great, doesn't sound super terrible, but remember we have used 1,000 hours of music data here, so that is reasonably accessible, I would say, to anyone who can use the internet and find public domain data. Now, to see what's possible in terms of audio quality especially, we can scale this up to way more data, for example, by using a pre-trained model by Google, which is exactly what we've done for another demo. And I have a screenshot of the paper here because I love it. If you look for the word data, there's I think 4 occurrences in a 30-page paper, but there is exactly one sentence that talks about like the provenance, where it comes from, blah, blah, blah. Comprises around 190,000 hours of primarily instrumental stock music sourced from various providers. My friend, don't worry about it, doesn't matter. But they train on like, and mass like 200 times more than what we just heard. And if you do that, you get something that sounds like this. This is our own system, but connected to their model, where we can query like their music generation using our prompts and our like inputs essentially. You will be able to try that in real time in the other room later, but for now I'm going to play a video of one of the like transitions we did here, and you can like judge for yourself the difference in audio quality. So we start with a jazz trio and the playful qualifier. We go to euphoric and hyperpop. Then we tune it down to calm. And then we change it back to soul rock.
Die Kompositionen sind von dir, Gustavo, oder? Gustavo, Komponist. So, it always takes longer than I thought. There's so much to talk. But we finished with the official part. Thank you. I would like to ask my team to come on stage. Jakob, Max, Yanis, Laurie, Lars, Anja, Luciano, Michael. Is Sophie here? If Sophie is here, come on stage now. And then the musicians, Paranormal String Quartet, Tetra bass. So, we will, the rest of the evening will be like this. We will have a discussion here with Martina Taubenberger and with you. Not too long, I hope, or as long as we hope. No, I mean, I know you're tired, that's what I meant. There's on the studio, if you go around the building, we have a sound installation using this Google model. You can interact with the music. We built this for ourselves to research how is it actually to interact with a real-time generative model. And then to get knowledge how we want to build our models. And it's quite fascinating. And then after the podium discussion, Paranormal String Quartet will play a concert. And be our guest, have a beer, and we stay here, we put the chairs here, and continue talking. Bravo!
Okay, so let's jump right in. My name is Martina Taubenberger, and I have the honor to do a little moderation, like a little panel discussion. I work in contemporary music, so I'm used to doing this in front of 3 people, so don't worry. This will not let down our energy here on stage. I have a million questions. I could talk to you probably for the next 2 hours, which I'm not going to do, but I just decided I'm going to invite the 2 of you to my podcast so I can ask all the million questions that I won't get to ask today.
Nice.
We make it 5 hours.
It's called blended art.
This is how we acquire our jobs, isn't it?
I know, it is. It is. So, of course, I would like to give you, the audience, the chance to ask a couple of questions. That was a lot of input, I think, and I'm pretty sure that you have tons of questions. I originally wanted to start, as you did the dramaturgy of the whole evening, with the more philosophical questions coming from the general to the more specific, and I just changed my mind. And my minds, I'm losing it. I just changed my mind. I will start with the specific, and maybe in the end we have 1 or 2 philosophical questions, because I do have questions about corpus in specific. Nevertheless, I want to start with a quotation that you gave me when we had a phone conversation before. You said, "Unfortunately, we are not scaling creativity, but insensibility." The German word is nicer, even it's Besinnungslosigkeit. Wir skalieren keine Kreativität, sondern Besinnungslosigkeit. That could also be senselessness in English. And insensibility or senselessness is what we can least afford at the moment. Now, what I find interesting in reference to that quotation is that Corpus is doing exactly that. You are scaling creativity, and you're scaling originality, you're scaling diversity. And so I have actually 3 questions about the scoring system that you have. We've heard about how you technically solve this, but I think it also raises some general questions. First of all, so just confirm if I'm getting this right. Your scoring system works this way that I need to answer because actually we are not scaling creativity. Oh, nice. Yeah, please.
Because
Go
the
ahead.
problem is these AI models are super stupid. The term AI is so wrong. There is no artificial, there is no intelligence in these systems. So they can only replicate what's in the training data. So that's why we need as much creativity in the training data, so the AI has something to do, something to refer to, but it cannot invent anything in you. So
But
that's
you
why we are
are-
not scaling creativity.
But you are paying composers more if they prove to be more original and more diverse in the material that they upload.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's about incentivization.
Yeah.
It's about an ecosystem, and an ecosystem needs to be innovative in a way to adapt. And so this is really clever, yeah. I was impressed when reading the white paper.
So maybe just to clarify this, the composers are not getting paid when they don't get the royalties when the material is actually used. They get the royalties the moment they upload the material.
No.
Is that right?
No.
No.
No, the value of weighting is happening in the moment of contribution. So what it's worth to the corpus, but they getting paid when money came in and that's distributed to people. That's like very traditional.
Okay, and the scoring, like the originality score that you have, does it always work in reference to all the material that is already in corpus?
Yes.
Or to so it's not comparing it to the worldwide music library that is out there. So that basically means that the first 10 composers contributing to corpus have a greater chance of getting a higher score than
If they are
after 10
original,
years.
my first time compositions were not original at all.
But if you're the first person to contribute material, there's not that much in corpus.
Well, we
yet.
start with a basic stock of music, which comes from Free Music Archive. So we start with what the Creative Commons community collected together.
Okay, so
That's quite a lot already.
and like another question: the moment I upload my material, I'm being scored. Is this score ever reviewed, like after 10 years or 20 years, or is it always the same score?
The basic idea is that it stays. There might be a need that we readapt it, and then we have like the governance mechanism, so we can agree on all. Basically, that's a problem I would like to have, that we need to readapt.
Okay, we'll talk about it in 10 years then, when you have that problem. Then another question that just came up when I heard, I think it was Max speak. You are able to detect cover songs, so you are able to detect material that's not original. But does this also only work in reference to the material that's already in Corpus? Because then, how can you make sure that someone doesn't upload something that you're just not able to detect?
The cover songs detection is something different. So because we want to make sure, actually, the reference database we have for the cover detection is actually not in Corpus at all, because we don't want that.
Okay.
That's exactly
Why
what
not?
we exclude.
But why not?
Well, if some Beatles legacy think they want to contribute that to Corpus, then be it, but I don't think that will happen, and neither is the question if we actually need it. No, it's really basically what we avoid also is, of course, you could game the system, but I think there are a lot of people who are accidentally covering things. And yeah, I mean, there's so much music outside.
Yeah, nicely put.
Yeah. And it should be clear that this is, so we have a reference. In the moment, this is an experimental state. Oliver is actually the one who's building it, charismatic. And it's a reference database of like 30,000 or something. What's the base, original song base? 40,000 original songs, which is basically covering the most covered songs.
Okay, that was
Like,
just for me to understand some understanding questions. And then I have one more question before I open up to the public, and then later we come to my philosophical questions. You said when we were talking about this before that Corpus can give us back things that we would otherwise lose forever, and you were talking about a sense of community among creators. Maybe this is even something the both of you can comment on. In what way does this system contribute to an enhanced sense of community among creators?
To be honest, I don't know yet really how, because there are some conflicting parameters in the system which prevent community building. Because if you're talking about money and you're creating an incentivation system which is based really on money flow, that's not necessarily something which builds communities. Communities are built by by common goals, which are wanting to make music together. That's something which builds a community. And it's always my wish that, I don't have the map here now, that we are also, we didn't show this today because it just confuses things even more, that every contributor should get a sense of he's part of this library. That the contributor gets a, like what you see on the website, if you scroll the website, it's a particle system, and actually when you hover with the mouse over it, you see that every particle is actually a music contribution. And when you scroll through the website, it all continuously changes its shape, and that's basically the system. And you should be recognized as a contributor. You should be able to discover other musics from other people and being able to connect, and that's something we hope that
So that would be like a next stage kind of thing, or
Yeah.
Maybe I could add something.
Please, yes,
Something. It's kind of necessarily a collective approach.
Yeah.
Because no one can do it on his own.
Yeah.
You need the collective, and this is the fifth C. We can add it to the three C's I presented, and I missed the fourth one because it didn't fit in the presentation. What we have lost is consent, compensation, credit, and control. And you give control back to the people in a collective. As it's not the kind of collective like GEMA is, but it wouldn't be working without a collective base. So this combination of control and collective. There might be a real chance to empower something like a community. At least there is a chance. It's hard enough nowadays.
I think I would take this moment to actually open the discussion to our audience, and I would start with asking the audience a question. Is anybody here who has actually uploaded material to Corpus? Is anyone already?
Nobody has.
Nobody has.
No,
oh,
no,
okay.
it's
So
not
that's a
open yet.
stupid question then. But do you have? Then I have to ask you. Are you already in touch with your community? So do you already get feedback from composers and musicians?
Too little. We
Too
are
little.
too busy with ourselves. That's total critique on myself.
Okay,
So we are
so
doing this too little.
Now is the
We
moment.
hope that we finally make the switch of really going outside and.
What kind of repertoire are you looking for?
I'm dreaming of this world model, you know, which has really also the particular regional ethnic musics of all around the world. And this is also, it's based on a funding by Creative Europe, and this is something I would love that we distinguish ourselves also by having like these regional amazing musics from all corners of Europe in this library, and you can explore it and you can use it for a training, and it gives a totally different sound than everything else which is out there. But in the end, I want everything.
But then we're talking about communities, not one community.
Yes, that makes it even harder.
You try to avoid the genre idea or notion, but repertoires can be huge and don't need to be fitting or sticking to one genre.
Yeah.
So is it African music overall that you would like to get into the model, or how could you find them? How could they find you?
That's the hard part. Yeah, that's really the hard part. Yeah.
But it's a really good question, because when
Yeah.
we're talking about diversity and biased algorithms, I think that's very important to reach out to them.
I do think there is something to get by doing analog events like this one. So actually my dream is that we do tournees, and do festivals, which we use, and the recording. So basically what we record today is actually, this is one of the first contributions to Corpus, because those live recordings are actually contributions to Corpus. They are also recorded in special ways, so we can train later models which upscale smartphone recordings. Because I want all this particular music, which is maybe not originating in a studio environment, but maybe on a marketplace with a smartphone. So, but I think, it's hard to reach people, regardless what you do nowadays, because there's so much going on. That's why my idea is to actually go to the communities in a physical way and build trust.
I might come back to that later, but now I want to open the discussion to the public. Yes. We have
Can you use a microphone, please? Otherwise.
Hello, my name is Oliver Alexander. I run 2 publishing companies, and when you said it has to be original, for example, I work with one band that are writing and producing krautrock. They are from Krefeld. I work with one band who are from Belarus. They record pagan folk. Now the question is, let's say there are 3 songwriters and they have a license deal with an indie label. At what point do all the participants need to give their consent? Or could they give me a, what do you say, Vollmacht? And second question is, it's all GEMA repertoire. So would you have a license with GEMA? Or do the songwriters need to opt out for artificial intelligence at GEMA? I have about 6,000 songs in my catalog, no problem to upload stuff, but it's a little bit of a legal issue.
Yeah, you need many different rights. And the ultimate goal is to grow together with GEMA. I mean, we are actually in many conversations. One problem with GEMA is that they only care about copyright, and it's actually a bit hard to open the discussion to all the other rights holders and getting everything together. And they also, of course, they have their own proposal for a license system, which is interesting, honestly, but yeah. How do you say dicke Bretter bohren? So it's we start small, and those are the questions which we want to be able to answer. And the moment we cannot answer them, we couldn't onboard you actually, because we don't have a proper agreement with GEMA repertoire. So those guys don't, for example, and that's why it's possible. And we, for example, one of our first target group for contributors are game composers who are traditionally not part of GEMA, which make things easier. So, but eventually we want to be able to onboard all repertoire also, which is registered with GEMA, but yeah, and or other rights organizations, that's for sure.
Maybe I can pass this on to you, because you're on the board of GEMA. What do those guys say about this? Is this considered competition, or do you see this as an addition to, saying you, but like GEMA?
I wouldn't think it's a competition. It's I mean, you're talking to them, and they talk to you, and they know you. I know that they know you, so. I think we're in this Wild West situation once again right now. Nobody knows the rules, and we're trying to define the rules. And GEMA needs to do so, and you try to do so from as an effort. But for GEMA, it's right now it is completely existential. If they didn't do it, they would give it up. And so we have to face and be aware of the structural problems. You addressed the copyright collecting societies do have the works, but we need the works covered by a recording. So we need every single aspect of the complete rights chain, and this is so complicated, and it has been so complicated for decades. And so, personally, I know GEMA is huge, and GEMA and other CMOs seem like monsters. They aren't, because they are very interested in finding ways to survive themselves, and to give their people the chance of survival. I think it would be of major importance to get into talks with the labels. The label structures might be the real problem, because they are interested in huge money. Yeah. And they are just recently they started making new rules, and they didn't ask us. No. As they usually don't. Yeah. And I think a common effort would be needed, and I don't know if we will get it done.
Yes, another question?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you for the insights, which makes people curious. But then, since you were saying you just sort of opening the platform to a testing process, there even is a waiting list for people to try it out. I mean, ideally, what's the general timetable, the framework when you submission that to business partners or when you pitch it? What is going to happen in the next 3 years, and when will be the first day when you finally write out some paychecks to contributors?
So in the moment, I'm really conducting many conversations, which are all not in a state where I could make them public, with both labels, mostly coming from the production music world, more also from the royalty-free production music world, because they have all the rights. It would be very simple for them to contribute. They see diminishing returns by margin. So, and the system we propose makes sense to them. On the other hand, I'm conducting quite many conversations with industry partners exactly for these applications. And it's very likely that by next year, we will have a few pilot projects done, which can be made public and on which we can build. And I would say the first payouts could be in 3 years. Absolutely.
Other questions?
There.
Thanks. I was wondering, because the interface for inputting and then generating metadata is language output. What's the input when it comes from the user point? So when you have somebody who wants to use the system to generate the music, is it also text-based?
I didn't understand the beginning of the question.
I just wanted to know how does it look like from this point of view of the user? So let's say a game company, I suppose. Do they also input text, describe what they want to have as a...
So basically, what we are not so much interested in is replicating these text-to-music systems, which are the current standard, like Suno and Audio and whatever. So our main development effort goes into real-time systems. So systems which are continuously outputting sound and music, and you guide them through text. So basically text is kind of the programming language, because that's also like a layer you understand, you can debug.
Right, but it would require somebody to understand what they want to achieve, a musician perhaps.
Oh yeah,
side,
these systems which we are building, they need a high amount of artistic layer to actually guide them. So it's probably pretty meaningless to just take the model in its technical state and expect from it that it does something meaningful. So if we have this car use case, it would be our model. We would license it to the car company, but then we would also build around the interaction layer. How actually is the sensor input interpreted by the model, and give it guardrails which are in line with the personality of the brand and the car line. And that's ultimately, again, a design process, an artistic design process. Okay. And that's something which so what we see there in the sound installation with our Reef system is basically all this technical sandbox around it. It's an adaptive music platform, and the model is just the core system in it, and then you can patch all those sensory inputs.
Perhaps it would be another kind of musical role for a musical specialist then, for these companies to have somebody who knows how to interact.
Absolutely. Also, like I also imagine like a game composer could create a basic set of music tracks which set which is basically the core of the soundtrack of this game, and this will be the prompt for this generative system, and then you put some guardrails around it, so you make sure that it always behaves only in certain limits which align with the artistic vision. But then you save all the effort you need to make it fully adaptive and so on, and that makes it accessible for a lot more, like also indie games or more artsy stuff.
Yeah, thanks. Can I have a second question? Maybe an observation, because right now the metadata describes the product itself. On a side note, myself, I'm a composer as well, and recently I've been asked to contribute to programming of concerts that are women music, since I'm a woman, turns out. And I thought, okay, next request comes, and I'm saying, okay, it could be women music, well, it could be also music interpreted as this, or originated as interpreted. So I'm giving the metadata description of my pieces, which actually connect to the process itself. So, and that it turns out to be interesting for these programmers of the music to have the metadata about not the product itself, but also about the process.
So this is Kasia Glowicka, we know from our composition studies, and she released a beautiful article on our journal, journal.corpus.ai. It's a recent article about why we actually need what the process is in composing and so on. You were referring to the process. And what I like to say currently is that we are now living in a time where the product of our artistic process becomes devalued by immense margins. And we've failed maybe also as artists to communicate the value of the process. And we have fluxes, of course we have several artistic developments also in the recent decades, which are more about the process. But I think it's time to really revisit the strategies, and for me, as an artist, the main question is, how can we actually turn the process itself into the focus and not the product anymore, without becoming music pedagogy or something. I have no answer to that, but the product itself seems...
So it was just a suggestion whether we also include in the metadata description the process or the inspiration or something about the origin of the piece. Then maybe it's... I mean, we could imagine that could perhaps be something useful in the generation as well as from the process.
Now I get a question. When we automatically create these descriptions, we don't know anything about the process.
That would have to be inputted by the
that creator. Would be needed to be. It's an interesting question. Actually, we haven't thought about that. If it would be useful
I think he might be in.
He did.
Oh, he thought about it.
Can we? Oh, hello. There is a little bit of research on that with symbolic. Oh, sorry. There is a little bit of research on that, especially with symbolic music, so MIDI, where people try to teach a network progressively to learn the basic chord progression, adding the melody, adding other things. And from what I know right now, and that is not a very well-informed decision, full disclosure, the changes in the quality, again, how do you measure that? But the changes in the quality of the outputs, based on whether you do that or not, are not huge. I think that might, like doing this sort of thing where we train models also with data about the process or in a step-by-step kind of fashion, might help our understanding of how the models learn the kind of data that we give them. I'm not sure if it's fundamentally going to change
I was
the
talking
result.
more about inspiration or about the origins of, so then maybe it's a deeper understanding of the product in that sense. Not about the harmonic progression.
But actually, this is again a very interesting question. First, we have to visit the question: is the origin and the inspiration really important for the product, even for Beethoven and Bach and whoever? I doubt it.
Actually, I would like to pick up on that question because I find this brings us to something on a more philosophical level. And if you may, I would maybe end this discussion with ending on a philosophical level. Because I think that the devaluation of the whole artistic process is a problem that we have in our society, and it's not a problem that is created by artificial intelligence. It's just being accelerated.
Yeah, exactly.
And the same thing goes for the lack of diversity, or what you talked about before, that we don't have a sense of ambiguity anymore in our society, or just simply transparency. This also what I call the technological illiteracy. People don't have an idea anymore what goes into results. So by prompting something on ChatGPT or whatever, I get one result and I have no insight into the process. And as a matter of fact, there is no process, because it's a chance. It's just a version, and it's a pretty arbitrary version. So, and this goes for a lot of things. Like, we complain about artificial intelligence is taking human decisions for us, and I question whether we are still able to take human decisions ourselves. Like, when we put out a job description and there come 60 applications back, is this really a human decision, or is this already a formality? Is this already on a superficial level? So I think that we have, and you called it the cardinal sin that we're carrying around with us. This is a larger socio-political, global problem that we have. And I'm wondering, listening to all of this, and I'm into a high degree of nerdiness, but aren't we losing the people that we want to care for? How did you call it? In comparison to the bees and the textile soil? Something like artgerechte...
Komponisten in artgerechter Bodenhaltung.
Genau, Komponisten in artgerechter Bodenhaltung. So we want people
freilaufende Komponisten.
We want people to care about this and to have a sense of quality, but we're losing them because everything is so... So where are the politicians? Where is a campaigning for all of this? And who does it?
First of all, obviously we are losing ourselves, but we are losing the game by losing ourselves, because this game is about us. I doubt that there is no process when prompting ChatGPT, because there's a human involved, everyone might have taken notice of all those calls for AI literacy, and I doubt the concept of AI literacy. Obviously, we need to know how to start a car, but not many people need to know how the car is working on a technical level. But still, people need to know that they aren't allowed to use the car to drive in someone else's house, or to kill someone, which is obviously quite easy with a car. Yeah. So we have the problem that we're talking about the technology, and the evangelists, and they're called like that, of the corporations, tell us stories and narratives about AGI and singularity and things like that. And scaling creativity and intelligence and PhD level ChatGPT things, which is complete crap. What they don't talk about is the humans being in a process with the technology. And if we took AI literacy serious, we needed to talk about humans and human behavior and social skills. Because, this is nothing new. Joseph Weizenbaum did the ELIZA experiment back in the 1960s with one of the first IBM mainframe computer systems. And he programmed it, and it's called the first chat bot in history right now. He programmed the system just to give answers that don't end a talk, a dialogue. Something like, oh, interesting, tell me more. So, and people didn't. It didn't take 20 minutes for the people sitting in front of those displays to tell the most intimate stories, the most intimate details. And our problem is over-reliance. Our problem is that we project human qualities into inhuman technologies, and we don't even care because it's so easy to fall in love with a system that takes over thinking for you, because thinking is hard work to do.
That's true. I would still say that a huge problem that we have in the arts, like coming back to music or art in general, is that other than with milk and textiles, I think there is no overall sense of what is an original or authentic piece of art. And
but why does it have to be original or authentic?
No, well, I'm just picking
it
up
might
on,
be just
I didn't
nice.
want to say, yeah, but...
Or moving.
What I'm aiming at is you took the comparison of that we all care for milk and eggs and honey coming from...
We here.
But maybe a lot more people than care for art that really remunerates the artists. So we know about this. And if we would all get a cow and do this ourselves, this would probably enlarge our respect for what a farmer does. So if I had to milk my own cow and I had to raise my own chicken and so on, I would probably be willing to pay more afterwards for the milk.
This is a question of education.
Yes, but I have the feeling that in terms of art, the fact that anyone can create art in any moment with any software or anything doesn't lead to more respect for the artist. It leads to less respect for the artist.
Yeah, obviously, and this is. I mean, I don't know how much time we still have, because this is a huge topic. Yeah, it's a really huge topic. I mean, I was sitting there seeing the four musicians playing with their whole bodies, and I saw the expression in the bodies, in the faces, and the communication to each other to get it done and to stay in a line. And if you experience something like that in front of the musicians, I think it's quite hard not to experience something special, something worthy. But it's a question of education, because most of the children that go to school will not have seen a philharmonic orchestra, even not a cinema, when they leave school. They don't visit theaters, operas, galleries, museums, and how could they know about the experiences being possible if we don't teach them? And we don't. So it's a societal problem. It's not an elite problem, because society is depending on culture. And I'm not so strongly interested in originality. When I decided to make music, which was very early, and I knew it was going to be my life. It was about emotion, simply about emotion. I wanted to dive into my emotions and express them with the violin, with the e-guitar, and later as a composer. And there are so many possibilities of making sense out of music. It's not simply about originality. I accept and tolerate the stance you make, but I think this is one of the points we could talk about later and in deep, because what kind of originality are we talking about? I mean, you read my book, and I'm quite outspoken about my doubt about someone else being able to judge the originality of my compositional work for films, because my duty might have been filling a gap that no one else will ever be able to experience, because I filled it. And this is not about melodies or chord progressions. This is just about dramaturgy, and this is about being a complice to someone else.
But I mean, this again leads to another question that is as old as the art, and that is the value of art and how you score it, and why a jazz piece gets less money from the GEMA than a contemporary piece from classical music. So we maybe don't want to go into that discussion. What I find interesting is that when we talk about artificial intelligence, we talk about so many things that have nothing to do with technology and that have nothing to do with artificial intelligence, but are actually, as you said, the larger societal problems that we have neglected and that really hit us in the face so hard right now, and in a speed that we have the feeling we can't control it anymore. And you talked about education, and I think that we can take many different parts, like inclusion, like diversity in our societies, and then it gets really scary. And since I don't want to end this evening on such a scary note, I have one last, hopefully a little more utopian question for both of you.
Seriously?
Yes, I hope so. And I gave you the question before because it's such a tough question.
I don't know if that's an utopian answer
You should not say something negative now. No, my question to both of you was, if you had to pick the one thing that should be done first, now, like on a bigger level, in order to make sure we don't all fall prey to the negative impacts of artificial intelligence, what would that be? It can be from education, regulation, technology, inclusion, participation, licensing, whatever. You're not allowed to say Corpus. Has to be something else. Although we all know.
And I asked before we went on stage if I am allowed to use the word regulation, and I will do so. There's this quote that justice delayed is justice denied. And we do have a serious time problem right now, because this is the third year of the AI revolution coming to an end, and still we don't have rules in Europe that express at least a bit of respect to the artists, to the originators' works. So just today, the Australian government decided not to establish a copyright exception in their laws, and a copyright exception for AI training. And they did it expressively in favor of the artists and the knowledge workers. And I hope that Europe will be able to give a sign like that, which might be so helpful for quite a few of us not to quit.
Can I simply agree?
You simply agree?
I simply agree.
Okay, wonderful. That's wonderful. So let's end the evening. No, we're not ending the evening. I'm sorry, because you're sticking around. You can ask all the questions that you didn't ask now. Exchange and form a community.
Enjoy the music.
Enjoy the music. So thank you for coming. Thank you for your attention. Danke.
Ja.